Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Real Gerald Quinn, recording this, of course, on a Tuesday, opening night in the NBA, the association for the 78th season of NBA basketball. Definitely looking forward to it. We'll give my Western Conference debrief at the end of the program. But as usual, as always, we begin episode 976 with the NFL game of the week. And that, of course, I could have went a couple places, but I thought that this was from start to finish probably the most competitive and best game as far as quality of play. Detroit gets by Minnesota 31-29. You had Detroit down 10-0 at one point, scores 21 unanswered points to go up 21-10. Minnesota bows back, especially in the fourth quarter, and hangs on for a 20. Minnesota actually took the lead at one point. Detroit goes down the field, kicks the game-winning field goal. Listen, I'm not a believer in Minnesota. You know how I feel about Detroit, but I'm not a believer in Minnesota by any stretch of imagination as far as them being a contender. But I had to say, I'll say this: I was very impressed with how Minnesota acquitted themselves in this game. I think Detroit is clearly a better team. I love Detroit. Right now, pound for pound, Detroit is the best team in the NFC, and Detroit is in the conversation for best team in football. To be perfectly honest with you, they're that good. They take over first place, improving to 5-1, 3-0 in the division, and again a very loaded NFC North division where you have three teams that have won at least 5 games in Detroit, Minnesota, and of course Green Bay. The Bears had an off week and a bye week. They'll play Washington next week. Washington next week on, I believe it's Thursday. I think it's a Thursday night game or one of those Monday or Thursday night game. I'll check the schedule for that one. But it's definitely, it's actually a 4:20. It's actually a late game, 4:25 game. So we'll see if Jaden Daniels is healthy for that one, for that rookie showdown with Caleb Williams. But this is a very good game. Detroit, again, like they have a identity, they have a way that they want to play. And they have one of the most, outside of Baltimore, I think probably the most unstoppable offense in football right now because of, you're talking about a top-tier offensive line, you're talking about 2 excellent running backs. And again, they don't get away from for the most part. They had one game this year where they got crazy and threw the ball a zillion times against Tampa Bay. Other than that, they have stuck to running the football. They outrushed Minnesota. Well, it was actually, the rushing was actually, they outrushed Minnesota 144. Well, there wasn't that differential, but they have 144 yards rushing. One of the stories of this game was, and continually, we have to start looking at this guy as a MVP candidate, like the way he's playing. Jared Goff has been incredible the last 3 games. He's playing, I think, some of the best football in his career. Definitely the best 3-game stretch of his career. Those last 3 games, you look at Goff is completing. So his last 4 games, which have all been victories, completion percentage 78%, 100%, 72%, 88%. His quarterback rating, he has 3 straight games of a quarterback rating of 140 or more. So he only has, in his last 3 games, 10 incomplete passes in his last 3 games. He has 10 incomplete passes and 7 touchdowns. So he has almost as many touchdowns as he does incomplete passes. At one point, he was like 15. He started out like 15 for 15 from 15 in terms of throwing the football. He's been playing unbelievable right now. And again, he can, you have to commit so much to defending their running attack. He's going to get one-on-one matchups with the receivers. And again, that team, Detroit knows who they are. They are right now, again, I think the best team in the conference. Now, again, I do like how Minnesota played in this game. When they got hit with that 21-10 run, they could have easily rolled over and folded. But they, battled back and played a hell of a game. Made it, and again, took the lead in the fourth quarter. But Detroit was just a little bit too much down. It was a little bit too much with the running game and with the balanced attack that they have when they don't ask Jared Goff to throw the ball a zillion times, which is never the recipe for the Lions. We're going to go to the deep dive. We're going to do a deep dive early. Texas, learning about life in the SEC. And the theme of this program, the theme of this podcast, remember who we are. That's speaking about the Georgia Bulldogs. Because, listen, all I heard all this past week was Texas was the new king of the SEC. Texas, everybody. When I mean everybody picked Georgia, everybody picked Texas. Everybody picked Texas. It was decisive. Not so much not giving Georgia a chance, but you can never underestimate the amount of quality, amount of big games that a team has played in over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. There's been no team outside of Alabama, not even Alabama. Maybe with the exception of Alabama, there's been no team in college football over the past 4 years that have played in as many big games than the Georgia Bulldogs. You can tell they were hot. They were pissed off about the lack of respect, and they came out there with an attitude. They came out there with a focus that we haven't seen the entire season. Maybe with the exception of the Clemson game where they smacked Clemson around. And by the way, the Clemson win. The Clemson opening season win. I know Clemson is a much better team now than what they were. What was it? Probably last weekend in August. But that win looks much better now, considering how well Clemson has played since that loss. Clemson is undefeated since that opening weekend loss, or that week one loss. And so you look at and compare to Texas. Michigan, those wins against Michigan. And the other big win that they had, those teams have kind of fell off the wagon. The two big wins that Texas has had that's early on in the season have not aged well at all. And this is the SEC. Like, in most conferences, if you're a top flight, top tier team, in most conferences, you play about 2 to 3 big games a year. The rest are, most of the part, either average to mediocre competition. You play about 2 or 3 big games a year, one major road game. Okay. And that's all you have to do to put yourself in a position to where you are going to play for a New Year's Bowl or make the playoffs or what have you, or, set your season to be a championship caliber team. In the SEC, you're going to play anywhere from 3 to 5 big games. Right now, like, you have Texas is in the midst of going. They lost Georgia. They lost to Georgia. They're coming off the game where they played Oklahoma, which was, I think, took something out of them, to be honest with you. I know they manhandled Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, but that is a game that emotionally I think took something out of them. They had to come right back, play host Georgia, and then now next week. They still have to play. They have to play Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is ranked. And remember, Vanderbilt defeated a couple of weeks ago, took out Alabama. That is life in the SEC. There are no breaks. And they, Texas will still also have, for the SEC championship, they will still have to play Arkansas. That would not be easy. Arkansas has improved. Arkansas has played a couple of people tough this year. So that's what life is like in the SEC. You don't get too many breaks. There are not as many cupcakes in the SEC as there is in the other Power 5 conferences, especially this year. The SEC is loaded from top to bottom. Now, yeah, is Alabama as dominant as they once have been? No. Is Georgia the same team as they once were in those championship years a couple years ago? Probably not. They're not as dominant. They're still, obviously, I think, top to bottom, probably the best team in the country, but not a dominant team. The quarterback was awful in the game. Beck was horrible in that game. By the way, through was throwing picks left and right, but they're still Georgia. And they still have, to me, pound for pound, the best coach in college football, and they know how to win. And again, they are playing weekly. Every game is a big game for Georgia because everybody gives Georgia, similar to Alabama, their best shot. They're at that level in terms of program. Every game is a big game. So they have that mindset going in and week out. And again, Texas is finding that out, what it is to be considered one of the top teams in the SEC. And they're going to lose another. Now, could Texas run the table? Possibly. We'll see. But this is what it's going to be like in the SEC moving forward. I totally did not get the quarterback situation of what they're doing. I don't know why you bench, Quinn Ewers if you were not going to leave Arch Manning in the game. Like, I don't get it. It was a panic move, in my opinion. So I'm not big on two quarterbacks, even in college. I don't think it works anywhere in college or in pro. You're playing two quarterbacks, you don't have any. That's my theory. I've always felt that way and always will feel that way. So that is a major question mark moving forward in regards to the quarterback situation. They're the only top team. And when you look at the Georgias, the Miamis, these top teams, Ohio State's, Oregon, they're the only top team that has any issues at quarterbacks. We were talking about a solid lockdown quarterback like a Beck or a Heisman Trophy candidates like Gabriel Dillon or Cam Ward out of Miami. That's it. So there's no other top 5, top 10 team that has a quarterback issue outside of Texas. And when you play when you pull your starting quarterback and put him back in, you have a quarterback issue. So we will see what happens and how this loss affects Texas. Does this linger on? Do they just bounce right back? And again, Georgia is going to be Georgia. They're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, both these teams are going to be in the playoffs. It's just a matter of whether or not which one wins the SEC. As far as the rest of the SEC goes, the Alabama loss did not surprise me by any stretch of imagination. It should not surprise anybody. I told you they're going to lose to Tennessee. That is their second loss. And again, this is like the curse of Nick Saban. This is the first time that they will have two losses entering November since 2007. And that was Nick Saban's first season, 2007. So we're talking 17 years. 17 years. They had a 17-year streak of not entering November with more than one loss. We will never see that again in this modern college football era. It's never ever going to happen. I promise you, it will never happen. But again, I still like Texas a lot as a legit top 3 or top 5 team. But let's hold off on them clowning them as like they're gonna just walk into the SEC in year one and just walk all over everybody. That was never going to happen, and they paid the price against the Georgia Bulldogs. For the NFL, Green Bay missed by Houston 22-20. We know Houston is banged up at the receiver position. They missed Nico Collins, and it showed in this game they only had 197 yards of offense. It was a great defensive performance by Green Bay. This game shouldn't even have been that close. Green Bay had a bunch of turnovers, 3 turnovers, a couple picks by Jordan Love, who wasn't great in this game. He was okay. He wasn't great. I still like Green Bay moving forward, because they have they have a legit Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and they have identity. They can run the football. Green Bay is a physical, power running football team. They're going to be tough to defend offensively, because you're going to have to gang up somewhat to slow down that run. And their receivers, they have so many weapons on the outside that they're going to get one-on-one coverage with those receivers, and Love is going to be able to throw the ball all over the place. Defensively, they came alive in this game against Houston with some pressures, which they knocked around CJ Stroud, still making that mistake with his name, CJ Stroud, all over the place. Of course, he missed in the worst way, misses Nico Collins, but regardless, Mixon had a nice game. I'm not going to knock Houston for this loss. They actually played. They did a good job to keep it this close, but clearly they're not the same team. without their top receiver, Nico Collins. Diggs is not the same player that he once was. And you see, by the way, Buffalo is 5-2 without him. So again, excellent, nice win for Green Bay at home. They keep pace with the Lions and also the Minnesota Vikings, who they of course lost to earlier this season. As far as the Super Bowl rematch, Kansas City, San Francisco, I made the stupid mistake of picking against Kansas City Chiefs with the San Francisco 49ers. Again, little did I know that they were going to lose all their receivers. So you have Deebo Samuels gets sick before the game. Ayuk gets knocked out. He's done with the Achilles. Jennings was already out. So they're basically, outside of Kittle, they have nothing at the receiver position. Offensively, they looked horrible. I can't put this loss on Purdy. I'm sorry. Like, Purdy is an easy target, but who's he outside of Kittle, who you can double Kittle. Who's he throwing the ball to? And remember, no Christian McCaffrey still. So, think about the weapons that they're missing. Debo's an all-pro. They just gave Ayuk, who's been horrible, a big contract. He's their second best receiver. And Jennings is a nice player, and McCaffrey is all-pro. So they're missing too much talent for anybody to overcome. I don't care who you are. That is a lot. You saw how C.J. Stroud struggled without Nico Collins. So I'm not knocking Purdy for it. Listen, Kansas City is who they are. They are the most valuable team in the NFL. It doesn't matter if Patrick Mahomes throws a pick. It doesn't matter if he doesn't look pretty. They outrush San Francisco. They destroy San Francisco in terms of on the line of scrimmage, 184 yards rushing. Mahomes had a couple of great runs. That's his improv, which was had the one run down the sideline, which was devastating. And again, Kansas City has one of the best defensive. They are one of the best defensive teams in football right now, without question. Spagnuolo, I'm surprised. I'll be shocked if Spagnuolo does not get another opportunity to get a head coaching job, because right now they are in the midst of playing some of the best defense that just such. And again, their defensive numbers don't blow you away. Like, they're top. They got like a top. They have a top 10 yards defense and I believe a top 5 scoring defense. It's excellent. They're a top flight defense from that standpoint, but it was the situational the right time to come at you with a blitz. They don't miss tackles. Chris Jones is still destroying people, but in terms of situational football, that's where their defense flourishes. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait till next time they play. Hopefully, they meet in the playoffs, and it's going to happen when they play Baltimore. See how they match up. See how they're going to go defend Baltimore's rushing attack. They're the only team that I think will have a legitimate chance to somewhat slow down that Baltimore rushing attack. Which, by the way, like, speaking of Baltimore, they just absolutely run through the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 41-31. Now 10-7. At one point, Tampa, I believe, was up 10-0 early on in this game. You have Baltimore comes back with a touchdown. Mike Evans gets hurt, and that was the ball game. After that, after Mike Evans' injury, Tampa Bay couldn't do anything. Baltimore's offense just goes into another gear. They ran the ball all over the place. 508 yards total offense. Henry has the big half. Second half, 161 yards, but only on 15 carries. Something to keep your eye on as the season goes along. That's the only thing that I think can slow down the Baltimore rushing offense if they start cutting back on Derrick Henry's workload, which by the way would be smart. You have Lamar. You have Baltimore is having a historic rushing season. They're averaging at 210 yards. A game. That is 44 yards clear of the second the highest team in the league, which is the Washington Commanders at 166. They're on pace to break their 2019 record. That year they averaged 206 yards rushing a game. Again, I'm fascinated to see if anybody can slow down this rushing offense. Lamar Jackson is playing. I can make a case for him winning another MVP, even though I probably would lean towards Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is doing it with nothing. They just got Amari Cooper, had a touchdown, fine, but for the most part, Buffalo, like offensively, that's all Josh Allen. I mean, all Josh Allen. So I would lean towards Josh Allen for MVP right now, but certainly Lamar Jackson is absolutely right there. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see moving forward how people attempt to slow down this historical rushing attack. As far as Tampa goes, a very costly loss for Tampa in more ways than one. Mike Evans is going to be out for a couple of weeks, and then you lose Godwin for the season. So Tampa was, things change quickly in the NFL. You're up 10-0. You're looking like you're headed towards a 35 point game against Baltimore, and your two best receivers are done for the foreseeable future, and you get smacked. That's how quickly life can change in the National Football League. Just that quick. Mayfield was awful in this game. Some of the throws he made, the interceptions, especially the two to Marlon Humphrey, which is the horrible throws, especially the one he threw. The one in the back of the end zone was great coverage. He was fooled by what he never saw Marlon Humphrey. The second one he threw that Humphrey got was that's the old Cleveland Baker Mayfield. Mayfield coming into this game was 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So he was playing absolutely great football, and I was looking at him for some possible MVP votes, but he kind of took a step back in this game from that standpoint. And game 4, Pittsburgh rolls over to the Jets 37-15. This game was at 1 point 15-6. Jets, before a bad Aaron Rodgers interception, leads to Pittsburgh getting some points, 15-13, and Pittsburgh absolutely never looked back in terms of that game. I want to say, here's what I want to tell you, and they were outrushed by the Jets. Pittsburgh outrushed the Jets 149-54. The Jet defense has absolutely taken a step back without Robert Saleh. There's no two ways about it. They look like a team that is teetering on just completely falling apart. I know the schedule down the stretch is not that hard, but right now they look like they can lose to anybody. It's just that simple. They look like they can absolutely lose to anybody. Now, again, Russell Wilson came back in this game, played well. Pittsburgh looked like a professional offense for the first time this season. But think about this. Pittsburgh was struggling to crack 20 points. They scored 37 points. They had double digits in the last 3 quarters of the game. They had 409 yards of total offense, 409 from a team that I told you was playing some of the worst offensive football in the league. Pittsburgh did. Pittsburgh looked horrible offensively. Now, again, you get the jolt, you get the moment, you get the spark from Russell Wilson. He played very well. I had outplayed Rodgers, frankly, 16-29, 264, 2 touchdowns, made some beautiful throws to George Pickens, who had a big game. But to me, this is more about, by the way, give Pittsburgh, you talk about culture. Pittsburgh's culture, they are tough as nails. That team, you talk about a no excuse organization. That team came into this season. Pittsburgh is 5-2 right now. 5-2. They came into this season with major question marks at the quarterback position. Russell Wilson, I thought, was completely cooked, and Justin Fields, they couldn't get him out of Chicago quick enough. Like I thought they did not have a quarterback. Very good defense, solid running game, but again, you can say what you want about Mike Tomlin. All he does is win football games. So all he does is win football games and holds people accountable. And that's the complete opposite of what you see in New York with the Jets. There's no accountability. It is an absolute shit show. Aaron Rodgers is the ringleader, and the Jets are not going anywhere. And I told you before the season when everybody was hype was on this New York Jet hype train. I said no. I said, look who's leading them. Look who is leading them. So the Devontae Adams, yeah, he'll make some plays here and there, but the bottom line is the heart and soul of the Jets team is their defense. That defense, which came into this season being a legit top 3, top 5 at worst NFL defense, looks lost right now. They look absolutely lost right now. And again, there's no coincidence. You lose your defensive leader from a coaching standpoint in terms of Saleh. it is what it is. So two teams going in opposite directions, and it is what it's what their coaches are dictated. One has a culture of losing and drama. The other has a culture of accountability and stability. That's what Pittsburgh Steelers have. We won the week. Lamar Jackson. He's playing some of the best football of his career. It really is a pick your poison with him. Like right now, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He is leading the best offense in the world right now. They are number one points for, and also number one in terms of yards. Now, again, the biggest reason, the thing that's taking the offense to another level is Derrick Henry. He's been a key. Let's be honest. He leads the league in rushing, averaging 6.4 yards a carry. That's the biggest reason why the offense has taken another level, has went to another level from a rushing standpoint and doing this historic things rushing wise. But we cannot discount what Lamar Jackson, how well Lamar Jackson has played this season. Now again, Baltimore, like Lamar Jackson, is at the level to where nothing less than a Super Bowl appearance will suffice. And maybe even a Super Bowl win. He's at that level of his career. He's won multiple MVPs. I very much compare it to where Peyton Manning was early in his career. Highly touted Heisman Trophy winner. Well, not Heisman. I'm sorry, Peyton. You didn't win the Heisman Trophy. That was Charles Woodson. Maybe you probably should have, but anyway. Number one quarterback, highly touted. Won a lot of regular season games early, was winning individual awards, MVPs, Pro Bowls, all pros and what have you, and had a poor playoff record. So they've had very similar trajectory, very similar parallels between those two quarterbacks. Listen, Lamar can play for my team any day of the week and twice on Sunday. He is absolute must see TV. Again, the question you have to ask for Baltimore, there's one team that's in their way. And there's one guy that's in their way. Well, not one guy, one team that's in their way, because we clearly see that the Kansas City Chiefs are a lot more, a hell of a lot more than just Patrick Mahomes. There's one team that's in their way, and that's, can they beat Kansas City? It comes down to that. It's just that simple. Can they beat Kansas City? And yeah, home field will mean something from the standpoint as you rather have it than not. But we saw last year Kansas City won 4 straight games, won the Super Bowl. If you're that team, you can win anywhere at any time. And Baltimore is built to win anywhere with that rushing attack. Now, again, the defense is still not where I would want it to be if I'm a fan of the Ravens. I don't want my defense in the bottom half of the league. The defense is 23rd and 26th, 23rd in yards, 26 in points. I kind of want that to be in the teens. They don't have to have a top 10 defense with this offense this year. If their defense is somewhere in that 12 to 15 range, that's fine. And playing well down the stretch, that's fine. But that defense is still shaky, especially against the pass. You can definitely, without question, still run against that defense. But right now, Lamar Jackson is playing as well as any quarterback in football, without question. Real thoughts. So I'm going to give you a quick abbreviated edition, not as long as I did my Eastern Conference preview of the Western Conference. So the team to beat is Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City, they come back with one of the youngest teams in the league. They come back. They had a tremendous playoff run last year, got to the conference semifinals, played a great series against Dallas. Dallas's experience was a little too much. Luka was the best player. Well, Luka wasn't even the best player in that series. Shea Gill, SGA was the best player in that series, but that series was much closer than what people realize. They're a team to beat. You add to the youth that they have. They lose Josh Giddey, not a big loss. They add Hartenstein and Caruso. They also not this year, but for the future, they actually have a chance of getting Cooper Flag if the Clippers just completely bottom out, which is possible considering Kawhi Leonard is already, it's already going to be sidelined. So that's for a conversation for another day. The bottom line about this team, Oklahoma City, and they have a bunch of assets that they can still move to add any pieces that they might need by a trade deadline. This is a loaded loaded team. This team is I can make a case outside of Boston that this team, when you look at their depth, you're starting five: SGA, Caruso, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. You still have Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, the other Jalen Williams coming off the bench. Now, SGA is a legit MVP candidate. Matter of fact, he's my pick to win the MVP this season. He's a legit top five player without question. Has been all NBA first team in back-to-back years. The question is, to me, which player emerges as their second best player in regards to either Holmgren or Jalen Williams? One of those guys I feel like is going to become an all-star. One of those guys is going to become an all-star. And I think take this team to the next level. If I had to make me choose, I would probably lean towards, even though I think Holmgren has more talent, I'll probably lean towards Jalen Williams. I love this team. And most people are picking them to win the West Conference for a reason. First of all, the bottom half of the West has a bunch of question marks. So, and I'll talk about that later on. But it's one thing. It's one thing to go from mediocre to good. Can they take the next step to go from good to great? So to go from second round to NBA Finals is a major step. I think this is the year, because I'm not, and I'll talk about Denver later on. I'm not in love with the top of the Western Conference. And as far as I'm concerned, that legendary trio that we've seen for like the better part of the last 15 to 20 years, LeBron, Durant, Curry, it's going to be a lot more bark than bite. None of those teams, I think, have almost any chance to make it to the finals. If people can try to sell you on Phoenix, I would say it's more likely that Booker gets traded than Phoenix makes a deep playoff run. I don't trust them at all. And so as far as second in line, I would go a combination of Dallas and Minnesota. Dallas, of course, adds Klay Thompson. Of course, we know the magic chemistry that Luka and Kyrie had. Now they lost their best perimeter defensive player, Derrick Jones Jr. Not nothing to sneeze at, but that's replaceable. They have, again, great chemistry. Jason Kidd did an excellent job last year. Lively Jr. has a chance to be, I'm not going to say a star, but he has a chance to really, really take a next, can be like an Aaron Gordon type as far as role players. A guy who doesn't care about stats, doesn't care about scoring, does all the little things defensively, rebounding and things of that nature. The question for Dallas to me is why I'm picking Minnesota, why I like Minnesota a little bit better. Teams that, now think about the eras in basketball. We have to go the bubble era. The bubble era started in 2020, but even the year before that, you had 2019. We haven't had a repeat champ since 17-18, the Warriors, the Kevin Durant, Steph Curry led Warriors. That era is over. The LeBron, Cleveland, Durant, Steph Curry era, those teams were dominant teams, great teams. That's done. We have more parity in the NBA. The NBA hasn't seen parity like this since the 70s, when you had no repeat champions. I don't think in this decade we will have any repeat champions. I just don't see it. So I think that it's more likely that a team like Dallas doesn't take a step back, but doesn't reach the finals. And since 2019, we haven't even had an NBA runner-up has not reached the final. Has only since 2019, only one NBA finals and only one NBA runner-up has won reached the finals, even won a championship. And that, of course, was the Boston Celtics. Celtics lost their championship in 2022. And of course, last year took out the Dallas Mavericks. Minnesota is the other team that's next in line. I think I told you how much I love the trade for Minnesota. They have a very strong top 8. I think Anthony Edwards will take that next step. You're coming off the bench with DiVincenzo, Nas Reed, Alexander Walker. I think that is a strong, solid top 8 players that you can make a long run in the playoffs with. I really do, and I think. Listen, if you want to go, if Gobert starts leaking oil from from an offensive standpoint, where he's not dominating defensively and he's not doing nothing offensively, I can go Nas Reed at center and have Julius Randle at the power forward. So I don't think you have to be all in on Gobert in the playoff minutes. The question for them to me is the age again of Mike Conley Jr. at the point guard position, and again how big of a jump can Anthony Edwards take? He's a top 10 to 12 player right now. Can he crack that top 7 to 8? So he's going to need to take that type of jump in order for this team to possibly get back to get to an NBA Finals, to get to their first ever NBA Finals. As far as the team that is a hit or miss, the Denver, and by the way, this time last year, I never thought that this team would be hit or miss this 2 years after they won a championship. But this is what happens when you don't want to spend money. And that's the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets over the last 2 summers lost Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They haven't replaced those guys, frankly. Those losses, especially the KCP loss, is ginormous. That guy was their best perimeter defensive player, could shoot the three, was a champion, won a championship with the Lakers. That was a winning basketball player. You don't replace those guys. And they did not replace him. Let me give you the Denver roster right now. So Joker, of course, best player in the world, is a walking MVP every single year. We're good. We're good with him. Aaron Gordon has got the big contract, deservedly so. One of the best role players in the league. We're fine with him. Now it starts to get dicey. Michael Porter Jr., very talented, injury prone. Like that guy. Let's keep it real. Injury prone. Christian Brown, question mark. Big question marks. He fills the spot of KCP. That's who you're getting to replace KCP. Jamal Murray. I didn't think that this would be a question mark, but Jamal Murray did not have a great season last year. Was enigmatic in the playoffs. That's one of the reasons why they got put out by Minnesota. Was not the same player that he was in 2023. And frankly, one of the more underreported stories in the Olympics this year, how bad he was for Team Canada. Talented team, but he was awful. And again, that's your second best player, right? Like right now, pound for pound, I'd probably say both ways, Aaron Gordon is good. I could make a case is their second best player, to be honest with you. And we're talking about their depth. They signed Sarge. Okay, Sarge is 1,000 is old and again injury prone. Russell Westbrook, okay, exciting but can't shoot. They have Peyton Watson. Like, there's not a lot there. Like, Joker is going to be Joker, but after that, this team is nowhere even close to what they were 2 years ago. Not even close. So I don't like Denver. They'll make the playoffs. They'll probably be top 4, top 5 in the West, top 4, maybe to the top 5 in the West. I don't see them missing it. They're not going to be in the play-in. But I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this roster. It's just not like that's not a lot around Joker that we thought those guys, those younger players have to grow up and develop fast. Like the Christian Browns and Peyton Watsons, those guys have to get better, have to get good quick. So as far as the conference finals prediction, OKC, Minnesota, I have OKC winning in 6 games. And I have OKC winning the entire thing. I have them beating the Knicks in 7 games. So, or I'll say 6. OKC in 6. So OKC is my pick. Not the Boston Celtics. I already explained why. You can check out my Eastern Conference preview. Not the Boston Celtics, but OKC over the Knicks. That is my finals preview. That is going to wrap up this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. As always, you can listen to this podcast where any podcasts are available. Have a great rest of your evening. So long.